G'day, it's Steve here from Fortress Learning. In this bite-sized tutorial, I'm going to introduce you to Robert Gagne's 9 events of instruction and explain how each one can be used to help structure and deliver training that is both meaningful and engaging. Back in 1965, Robert Gagne presented 9 events of instruction in his book titled The Conditions of Learning. These 9 events of instruction remain widely recognised to this day. These 9 events relate to the conditions needed for successful learning to take place and the phases that learners go through during the learning process. The 9 events fall into 3 distinct categories, which include preparation, instruction and practice, and assessment transfer. After identifying the desired outcomes of the training and the learner's current level of skill and knowledge, these events should be used as a framework for designing your approach to instruction. So let's take a look at each of these 9 events. The first event is to gain the learner's attention. This involves ensuring that the learner's attention is focused on the training and that they're ready and willing to participate in the learning activities. This can be done by presenting something novel or surprising to the learners that sparks their interest and curiosity, including activities such as interesting stories, thought-provoking questions, and even icebreaker activities. The second event involves explaining the learning objectives so the learners understand from the start what the purpose of the training is, what the outcomes and expectations are, as well as the pathway for how these goals will be achieved. Don't forget to explain any rules or codes of practice that will need to be followed, such as timeframes, safety, or expected behaviour and conduct. The third event is about stimulating the recall of the learner's prior knowledge and learning. This involves the learner making associations between what they already know and are familiar with and the new content and concepts that will be included in the training. This can be achieved by posing a situation and asking learners to share their experiences or providing them with examples of experiences based on the new content that's in the context of their own previous experience. The fourth event is about presenting the content. This involves chunking the content into manageable sized pieces of information and presenting it to the learners in a logical sequence. Using a variety of sensory methods and resources to present the content will allow the learners to take in the information in the way that best makes sense to them. It's also important at this stage to ensure the use of activities that keep the learners engaged and actively involved. This can include discussions with open-ended questions, hands-on and small group activities. The fifth event is about providing learner guidance, which means helping the learners to learn how to learn. This involves providing the learners with guidance and advice on the kinds of activities and strategies that they could use to help with the retention of the knowledge they're learning. This may include suggested resources or activities and even a timeline with suggested milestones so the learning doesn't become too overwhelming. Gagne's sixth event is about eliciting performance, and this is where the learners are provided with opportunities to put into practice what they've learned. This may include having the learners demonstrate the practical skills they've acquired in hands-on activities or role plays, and quizzes or presentations that require them to show the knowledge they've gained. The seventh event is about providing immediate feedback to the learners about the accuracy of the knowledge and skills that they've demonstrated. The feedback should remain positive by acknowledging the efforts of the learner, and where necessary, it should provide specific guidance on what could be done to improve performance. This could include direction to relevant resources that may be of value. Remember that this feedback is provided after the practice and before the formal assessment, so students can be fully prepared for the future assessment event. The eighth event is all about assessing the learner's performance. Now, having had the opportunity to practice and after receiving constructive feedback, the learner can now be formally assessed to determine if they have achieved the skills and knowledge objectives that were identified at the beginning of the training. The assessment methods used should reflect the criteria being assessed. Skills should be assessed through some form of practical activities, and knowledge should be assessed via questioning. Wherever possible, the assessment tasks should be contextualised to allow the learners to demonstrate skill and knowledge in a situation that is relevant to themselves. The ninth and final event involves enhancing the learner's retention and ability to transfer the learned content to different situations. This can be achieved by providing additional examples of how the skills can be applied in the context of the learner's previous experiences, as well as to future situations that have not yet been experienced by the learner. This will allow for clearer understanding and a broader application of the skills and knowledge that's been learned. In summary, Gagne's 9 events of instruction serve as a valuable framework for structuring and delivering training content while addressing the conditions necessary for effective learning. It's recommended that the learning objectives for the training be identified before applying the 9 events of instruction. This will ensure a solid foundation and structure for the facilitation and assessment of the training content within the appropriate conditions for learning. Thanks for watching, and if a career as a trainer in vocational education is something you're interested in, contact Fortress Learning to see just how you can get started.